Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us on a spontaneous Doctrine of the Soul on this beautiful Tuesday night. Living here at the beach, hearing the wind going, and I've got the windows wide open, and I'm such a night owl. I love this time. um, but anyway, really appreciate you all joining us, whether you're live or you're watching on YouTube. Appreciate all you guys' support and the comments and all the texts and things that I'm getting from you all. It really means a lot to me, especially when I'm doing a lot, and it adds a lot of fuel for me to continue to do this series. And really always appreciate your feedback. Originally, the intention was that we are going to do every other Sunday. Being completely honest, I forgot about football season, and I love watching football on Sundays. And so we've been kind of out of rhythm with all that. So we're going to be, in the flow until football season ends. So we'll probably get back into the every other Sunday, probably, in February. But until then, I think we're going to be in the flow, knowing that all these are always posted on YouTube. So whether you can make it live or not, all the material's there. So so tonight's transmission was really inspired by the magic class that Dr. Joe Futterman and I are teaching currently. And this was really supposed to be for them, but we got a lot of other material to share with them. So we decided to cut this out and make this a Doctrine of the Soul series. So we will be kind of talking about magic a little bit. But I'm excited about sharing this download, and because I think it's really worthy to speak of. And so on that note, we will begin just taking a moment right here, right now, to be one in the breath, to be one with my glorious self. And as I know this for myself, I'm knowing this for each and all of you, the gloriousness and the essence of who you be and who I be. We are the beautiful expressions of the oneness. Each of us unique, each of us glorious, each of us equally beautiful. As I share with my class, the Dalai Lama and the homeless man, they are the same. The only difference is the house that they live in, meaning the body temple, and how that body temple is shaped and formed. And obviously, I'm not talking about the physical appearance. I'm talking about the spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical aptitude of which the homeless man's body temple and the Dalai Lama's body temple are calibrating at. But in the essence of who is in those body temples, it is the one, it is the same, it is equal. As I say that, like another download comes in, it's like, maybe we just take this off course and talk about something else. I got so much to say. But anyway, moving on, coming back to the breath. And in this oneness and this shared experience and knowing that we are all one, picturing this world right now and all of the fires that are taking place, we send love, we send light, we send divine knowing to each and every sentient being taking a breath in this moment. Knowing that with the I am, knowing that with God, knowing that with spirit, everything is possible. And in taking this breath, allowing the infinite possibilities of expansion, gloriousness, love, and healing for the mass consciousness of humanity to occur. And I can know this. I can know this because it is already done in the mind of God. It is only a matter of perception of time for us as a human consciousness to experience this in our current state. Whether that be right now, next week, or 100 years from now, it will happen. Because we have people like you tuning in, because we have people like you doing the work, because we have spiritual warriors that are raising the bar each and every day. And so that's what this transmission is about. Before we go into that, a little logistical thing. I know we started out with this course, talking about Alif and Beth and all of that. And the last one we did, was inspired by Israel and all that. And then this one, so my point being is we're going to be a little bit in the flow for these upcoming transmissions, and then maybe in February we'll pick back up with the material that we originally started with. But until then, it's just going to be whatever my guides download me with, and believe me, they give me a lot. So we can bust out a few for sure, even right now. But anyway, let's move on to what this night is about. And the title of it is For Your Life to Be Correct, Your Process Must Be Correct. For your process to be correct, your premise must be correct. And so we're going to talk about that tonight. So do a little hape and then we'll begin. And as I do this, continue to anchor it to the field of knowing the infinite possibility for all of those beautiful beings, all of our brothers and sisters right now that are experiencing the perception of pain and experiencing that because they don't know any way out of it. And knowing that spirit and God and the I am is always, always the answer. God bless them. So a mistake is not determined after the fact. Let's contemplate that for a moment. A mistake is not determined after the fact. We live in a world that is very results oriented. But as I share with people, the universe feels us, it does not hear us. And so the result of an action isn't actually what the universe responds to. The universe responds to your intention of that action. And the universe does not even respond to something being a mistake or not after the action has been taken. The universe responds to the consciousness of which the action was taken from. Let me say that one more time. The universe responds from the energy from which the action was taken from. And if you could understand this, and feel into this truth, then you will understand the significance of what we are about to say. Life is about doing the right process every day over a long period of time. Let me rephrase that. Success in life is about doing the right process every day over a long period of time. Success in life is about doing the right process every day over a long period of time. So your focus should be what happens as a result of your action. Your focus should be about creating the right process that you apply yourself to each and every day in a committed manner, in a committed and consistent manner. I'm reminded of Reverend Michael Beckwith when he was talking about meditation, and he would say that meditation should be done with sincerity and earnestness. Sincerity meaning coming to it with love, but the earnestness meaning commitment. And that's how our process should also be. We come to it from a place of love, but we come to it from a place of commitment. Focus on making the right decision and repeating it over and over again. Focus on making the right decision. When we say making the right decision, we're talking about your process. Do the right process each and every day and repeat it over and over again. So let's talk about the right process. If you consider yourself a spiritual being, or a Christian, or a Muslim, or any other religion, then your day should start with what you believe. And what you say means the most to you. If you are not spiritual, or if you are spiritual, but you say, hey, my family is the most important thing to me, cool. Whatever that is, then align yourself with that the first thing of the morning. But I will also say that having humans as your number one creates conflict. For God is the only thing, spirit is the only thing that we can actually count on. Humans change, as they should. But God never changes. Spirit never changes. Spirit's love for us never changes. And so that is the right process. That our day begins with honoring that relationship that we have with Spirit. So for me, obviously that looks like meditation. That looks like what humans would call prayer. I call it conversation. And that also entails my magic work. And depending on the morning, a variety of other different tools that I will incorporate depending on what I feel that I need for that day. Spiritual tools, spiritual practices. That is beginning your process on a strong foundation. In terms of the mental body, so we've covered the spiritual body. In terms of the mental body, it's taking on the practice of breathing before you speak. Taking on the practice of breathing before you speak. And science actually supports this because most of the time, humanity is running around making decisions from reaction. Reaction comes from a place in our brain called the amygdala. Other spiritual teachers will refer to this as the reptilian brain. Please don't do that. As someone that has a PhD, people that say reptilian brain, you kind of I don't have respect for that. Let's just say that. I don't have respect for people that say that. Look it up. Look at what it actually is. It's the amygdala. Let's call it what it is. So that is the place of fear. That is the place of fight or flight. That is the place where we react. And that's why the world is how it is. We do not breathe before we speak. We do not breathe before we take action. What science has told us is that by breathing, we actually move our attention from our amygdala to our frontal lobes. Our frontal lobes is where DMT is produced. DMT is known as the God particle. Our frontal lobes also work with past, present, and future consequences and many other glorious things. If we are to be in the right process in our day, we want to make decisions, we want to take actions from our frontal lobes, not from our amygdala. Neil Donald Walsh, in his books, The Conversations with God, I believe it was either book 1 or book 2, God had a great analogy for this. And what she said was, she was talking about the difference of reaction and creation. When we are operating from our frontal lobes, we are in a creative place. And what she said in the book was, all you have to do is move the C in the front of reaction, and you get creation. In essence, when you actually see, you can create. This practice in this process will change your life. It is the scientific foundation of what people say in our spiritual community about being conscious. Being conscious means that I am breathing. That's why we meditate. We meditate so that we are practicing the breath, so that when things arise that put me in some type of reactionary mode, I come back to my breath first before I react. And this is truly living a conscious life. So a strong process is learning to breathe before you speak and before you act. The next step in having the right process is to speak your truth first to yourself and to everyone that you encounter. Speaking your truth is liberation. Speaking your truth is living in reality and not creating fantasy. Whether you are someone that believes in the manifestation teachings, or if you are someone that truly understands and works with magic, unless you are speaking your truth, your manifestation or your magic is bullshit. Because if you cannot be in truth with the universe, then when you speak your manifestation or you speak your magic, the universe will not believe you. There are no white lies. Truth is liberation. Truth is freedom. Letting someone know where they stand in your life liberates them and it liberates you. The act of not speaking your truth is you avoiding conflict. Avoiding conflict only suppresses an energy that wants to be expressed. And as you suppress this energy, it will affect your life. And it will absolutely affect whatever you are trying to create. Truth must always be a foundation of correct process. And that also goes with speaking the truth to yourself. Actually looking at your bank account every single day to see what the truth is. Actually looking at what your words are saying and evaluating without judgment, without any kind of negative thought, but evaluating, does your action back up your words? This is very important if you are a creator of your life. Do your actions back up your words? This is in essence what it means to live in integrity. And as we're evaluating ourselves, we do not shame ourselves. We do not do any type of negative talk because that doesn't do anything. It's not productive. And if you can develop the practice of not judging yourself, not having any negative emotions around yourself or negative words about yourself as you are looking at the reality of your actions and your words, then this evaluation process becomes fun. I enjoy it. I love it. I love looking at the little details of my life and did my actions back up my words today? Because I don't berate myself. I don't spend any needless time in calling myself names or, anything like that. It doesn't do anything. That's wasted energy. But I do love to evaluate and then course correct. And that's the other part about a proper process is course correction every single day. My nightly meditation consists of me talking to my spirit guides. And in this nightly meditation, it is what I call a contemplative meditation. I didn't make that up. Like contemplative meditations exist. What I mean is that I do a contemplative meditation before I go to bed. And this contemplation is about my day, where I look at, with my spirit guides, the choices that I made throughout the day. And if it was something that did not support my intention for the day, my will for the day, my magic for the day, then I spend time in looking at where that choice came from. And why I veered off, why I went in a different direction from what I spoke in the morning in terms of what I told my spirit guides that I would do. And I love this process. I love the growth. I love examining myself in terms of how I can be better. And 99.999% of the time, there is always something that I look at and I say, yeah, I could have been better. But this is part of the process each and every day. And by doing this, then that helps me become more aware of making better choices the next day. This is also about accountability, because sometimes I'm aware of the choice I'm making. Sometimes I'm aware of, yeah, if I make this choice, this doesn't really back up what I said that I wanted to do in the morning. For example, lately I've been, well, actually not the last couple of weeks, but there was like a 6-week time frame where, and I know what it was from, but basically, I would have a very strong sugar craving, around 9 o'clock at night. And I in my past, I've had a history of emotional eating, especially when I was coaching football. So I know that when these sugar cravings come up, it's some type of emotion, and I knew what it was about. It was about some things with my mom, and so for about a 6-week time period, there was a conflict where I wanted to have a Christian Oreo shake. When I say Christian, I'm referring to Chick-fil-A, the Christians. They make great Oreo shakes. And one of my favorite Oreo shakes. It's freaking delicious. I might want one right now. It's fucking good. But actually I don't. The sugar cravings are gone, thank God. But they do appear every now and then. But I'm on a good streak right now. But the point being is that I would be in this conflicted state where I would say my magical work in the morning about how I love my body, about how I want to improve my body, about how I want to still lose a few pounds and I want to tone up and yada, yada, yada. Having an Oreo shake at 9 o'clock at night completely gives lies to those words. And I would do it. And there was even a time, I think, where I did 3 or 4 days in a row of having that Oreo shake. Again, I knew why I was doing it, this, that, and the other. I was aware, but awareness doesn't always produce the quote unquote right choice. So I was in in a conflict with this. And in those nights that I would have that Oreo shake, again, I wouldn't call myself any names. I wouldn't do any negativity because that's wasted energy. A lot of humans do this to themselves. That's why they don't want to look at reality. Because if they looked at reality, then their first thing would to call themselves, certain names that are not beneficial, or to even feel some type of depression about themselves. So humans naturally like to run away from conflict, especially when it deals with themselves. This is not the right process. Conflict avoidance is never the right process. But I would have those Oreo shakes and I would still do my contemplative meditation, and I would have to review a choice that I made. Sometimes it would be, oh yeah, 30 minutes ago I made that choice. And I would sit with myself and ask myself why I made that choice. And of course, then truth would come in because I'm working with my spirit guides with it. And I would make a new commitment to not do that. And then the next day I would do it again. And then finally, I got sick of myself doing this over and over and over again because of the accountability aspect, because I would have to sit with my spirit guides and sit with myself and look at myself and say, my action and my words are in conflict. What am I going to do about this? Because either A, I stop having the Oreo shakes, or B, I stop saying in the mornings that I love myself and that I love my body temple and that I aspire to have a, a greater vision of what I know that my body temple can be. One of those things have to change, either the spoken word or the action. And it was, a couple of weeks of this, maybe even 4 or 5 weeks of this, where I finally just came to the point where I'm like, this has to shift. This has to change. And so Spirit actually told me what would help me change it. Spirit actually said, have bacon. Have bacon in the mornings, and that'll solve your sugar cravings. I started doing that. I have no sugar cravings anymore. And I enjoy my crispy, delicious, healthy bacon from Erewhon every single morning. And once I did that, the sugar craving stopped. And there's also, ceremony, a lot of healing that took place as well. But with that healing came insight, and with that insight came a different course of action. And I do love bacon, and a certain amount of bacon I think is good for you. So it's working. better than the sugar, at least. So I share this as an example because when we're in the right process, then we can course correct. Like for my example, and that was an extreme one, I was going through some deep emotional things with my mother at the time, but by doing this process, eventually it got me to a place of change. Whereas other humans that do not have a process in their day, they'll continue to drink. They'll continue to smoke cannabis in an unhealthy way. You can definitely smoke cannabis in a healthy way, but most humans do it in an unhealthy way. The difference is your intention. Other humans, they may continue to quote unquote fib or speak white lies or even lie flat out. Lie so much to where they start creating a fantasy world where they don't even know what's truth and what's untruth anymore. Again, these are simple things that create the outcomes of where our world is today. And that's why for you that are in attendance live, as well as for the people that will be watching over YouTube, my spirit guides and I suggest for you to create a process that you go by and live by over and over and over again, each and every day. From spiritual lineage, we would call this a spiritual practice. A spiritual practice that you do each and every day. But it is a process. And when your process is correct, then your decision making will be 90% or more successful. The rest of the 5 or 10% is based on karma and short-term perspective. It's based on karma or short-term perspective. And so when those mistakes occur, we suggest to you regret minimizing. Regret is a very unhealthy behavior that keeps us in our past. We cannot create anything new, whether you go by the manifestation teachings or the magical teachings. You cannot create anything new if you are in regret. You must be fully present to create. And so by having a proper process, we say that you will have successful decisions 90% or more of the time. For those times where the action would lead to what other humans would call a mistake, we say that it is not a mistake. It is caused by either karma or short-term perspective. Obviously, we understand what karma is. By short-term perspective, we would like to elaborate a little bit more on that. Short-term perspective, oftentimes, and as someone that used to do couples counseling, these type of examples would happen over and over and over again, or at least I would hear these stories over and over again about someone that maybe made a mistake with their ex-girlfriend, girlfriend at the time, but then became an ex because of the mistake. And we're not talking about cheating or anything like that. We're just talking about, something a little bit more minimized. And they get dumped and they're in this place of, oh gosh, I can't live without her. And then 3 months down the road, 6 months down the road, a year down the road, they meet the one. They meet the one that they love. And then instead of all of that regret then actually turns into soil from that person's perspective, because now they thank the situation. They thank God that they made that quote unquote mistake, because now they're really with a woman or a man that they really love, that they really enjoy, that they can't imagine not being with them. But in the short-term perspective, that individual may feel like their world is collapsing. That is a short-term perspective. Long-term perspective, we see the truth, we see the rhythm, we see the flow, we see how the universe is always working for my good. But it won't work for your good if you are always in regret. Because you cannot create anything new from a place where you're living in the past. Because when you're living with the past, you are only dealing with what has been done, not giving any energy for what might be created. So proper process, a correct process, is regret minimizing. We say minimizing because we are human. To say regret elimination would be to be in a place of God or goddess state. And that's not being in reality. We are human. So we say regret minimizing, taking out the trash, taking out the regret, taking out the past, and knowing in your heart and in your mind and in your will that you are a magical being, and that from this breath, this day, this moment, this now, that you can always create something new. And so any type of regret is delaying that place of choice to create something new. Yes, looking back at the past is healthy when you're doing it in a healthy way, but regret, the emotion of regret, is not healthy. We look at the past for information for my new moment, my now moment, my present moment, to have more wisdom, to be able to take the action of course correction. This is what I do in these contemplative meditations every night. I look at the past not to regret, but to course correct. And so when we have the right process, then we can make our choice and be fully in our king and queen energy, because we've supported our day in the right process. So I invite you to evaluate your process. What is your process every day? Do you just kind of wing it like most humans do? Or do you actually have a process? Another example that I realized in ceremony was that uh, a certain situation happened with my mom a couple months ago, and it brought up a lot of old stuff. It was like a nuclear bomb going off in my emotional body. about a month or so later, after maybe 5 weeks after, I did a ceremony in which my spirit guides talked to me for 15 and a half hours straight. It was incredible. They mind fucked me so freaking good. um, but in the course of the mind fucking, and very grateful for it, they actually took me back to my childhood. And when I say took me back, I'm not talking about memories. I'm talking about I was actually there. And through this process, they reminded me of a vow that I took when I was 18 years old. And they told me, they said, and it wasn't a good vow. It was a vow created out of another situation between my mom and I. And basically the vow was, if I can't count on my mom, then I can't count on anyone. And that was the vow. So they took me back, and I actually observed myself saying this. And anytime your emotional body and your words are in alignment, those words become the truth of your life. And what my spirit guides told me, they said, this is what this recent incident with your mother was all about. We needed to take you back so that you remembered what you said. And you see, like, I had done so much healing around that incident, not totally healed, obviously, or else I wouldn't have had the recent emotional reaction. But I had done a lot, enough to where I actually forgot that I actually made that vow. And what my spirit guides told me, they said, all of this was so that we could take you back to this vow so that you could make the choice out of your own will to break this vow, which is what I did. And so something that looked like a negative action that caused a lot of emotional pain in me a couple months ago with this recent thing between my mother and I, actually became a blessing. When my spirit guide said, this is what this was all about. We needed her to do this because this action that she took was very, very, very similar to the action when I was 18 years old that made me make that vow. But when my spirit guide said this needed to happen, we needed your mother to do this to you again so that you could go back, because we needed this vow broken. So how can I call that action that my mom took a couple months ago bad? In fact, it was a blessing. I have gratitude now for what my mom did. And so I share this with you all because this is an example of, again, of short-term perspective. Yes, I was in a deep emotional reaction based off of her reaction. I began a healing process that took weeks. But when I went into ceremony and received my medicine I saw that it was all divine and it was all perfect. So we regret minimizing is important to the evaluation of our process. Try to not get caught up with the short-term outcome because the universe is always working for our good. Some things just need to happen, and they might not be mistakes if your process is in alignment. If your process is in alignment, then there are no mistakes. There's just evaluation of your process and course correction and waiting for the divine insight in terms of why that mistake took place. For your process to be correct, your premise about your life must be correct. And this is where we go back into past Doctrine of the Souls, where we talked about who are you? What really is the premise of your life? And when we talk about the premise of your life, we're talking about what is the want of your life? Why do you get up every day? Why do you do the things that you do? What is the underlying premise? Is it motivated from fear, which most humans, do? Or is it motivated from love? Or is it motivated by wanting to have a greater experience for your life? And like we said earlier, admit the truth, do this evaluation, asking yourself, what is the premise for your life? But I will say, if the premise is not God, then your process will also not be correct. In these times, the ones that will survive and also thrive are the ones that have their premise with God and that have a daily process with God, Goddess, and Spirit being first. There is no other way. But again, we must be honest. And if in that honesty you say, oh, it's my kids, well, then I invite you to read the story of Abraham. Trust me when I say, if your premise is not with God, Your process will not be correct. And in the significant changes that are about to take place in the world, you may survive, but you will not thrive. That's enough out of me this evening. Thank you so much for being here. Much love to you and the rest of humanity. We need God, and we need to exemplify who God and Goddess is. Amen. I guess I was about to end it, but I was like, oh no, we have people on the line. Any questions? Do you all feel complete? Is that a yes? Oh, there's a question? Oh, Allie? Thank you, Anna. Allie? Oh, Linda, can you unmute Allie, please?
Hello? Okay. Sorry about that. Uh, Technology is wonderful. Joshua, thank you for this. It's very powerful transmission. My question is, when you go about breaking the vow out of your own choice, is there anything you could say about more about that? Like my mind went to just the points that you shared to do that. Speak the truth to myself, um, minimize regrets. Well, first of all, breathe before I speak and act, and then speak the truth to myself, and then minimize my regrets. Evaluate, and in the evaluation, of course, I'm not going to beat myself up, but and you have shared with us to do the purge and um, those kinds of things. But is there anything that you could talk about in terms of action of breaking the vow? Because that seems to me, and then and once we break the vow, do we create a new vow that's empowering? You know what I
Yes.
mean?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, for me, because of my connection with my spirit guides, I basically did my magic in breaking my vow. And it was a long process. It became a ceremony, in just doing that action. And it actually took place in my home as well as down on the beach, because anytime that I'm cleansing myself, I want to have the ocean. So we know that it takes about 20 minutes to be in salt water in the ocean for it to cleanse your chakras. So I spent 30 minutes in the ocean. Um, and but I said all, basically I applied the magical formula to breaking the vow. That in itself was a very, very long process. And then after that, I went down to the ocean to symbolize the cleansing, to symbolize the brand new, me. And then came back here, went to my patio, and then I made a new vow. And but this whole thing, I mean, you're talking about a 4-hour process. So there's a lot to it. And but it has the same principles of what we've already spoken in other classes. Yeah. So does that help, Allie? Allie, does that give you clarity? All right. Yeah, Linda, Linda, just go ahead and unmute everyone. It's fine. Or unmute Allie. Is the premise the same as we might say as a statement of will? And if you recognize that your premise is based in subconscious fears, besides professional help, is there any other tools one could use? Is the premise the same as we might say as a statement of will? No. And if you recognize that as your premise, is it based in subconscious fears? Well, the premise is really your belief about the situation. And so when we talk about, your true premise being anchored in God, then that takes a lot of deep shadow work to shift. Because like we've talked about before, the building blocks of any relationship is safety, trust, surrender. All these wacko spiritual people running around saying that they surrender, they don't. You can't surrender until you have trust. You can't trust until you have safety. That's the reality of being a human. We need our safety first before we can build into trust. And then if we trust long enough, then we can go into surrender. So the premise is your belief about why you are doing what you're doing. Your active will is your magic. And you want to have your premise support your magic. Because when your premise supports your magic, then your magic will more likely come true. But a lot of humans are running around with a premise that's not healthy. They want to prove something to someone. It's based out of fear, yada, yada, yada. So does that answer your question on it? I guess we're having technical difficulties, so just put your response in the chat unless you can speak. Okay, great. Mhm. All right, anything else? We good? All right. Maybe we'll ask Dr. Joe next week to talk, to share some things about breaking vows. All right, y'all. Thank you for joining us. Have a beautiful evening. And we'll see y'all soon.